He wasn't just a Hollywood legend, he was the enigma behind the curtain, the acrobat who conquered the silver screen, the rebel who walked both in light and in shadow. But who was Burt Lancaster? Before the fame, before the scandal, before the fall, in his final years he wrote a secret memoir. And in it, he named names, the cruel, the manipulative, the ones Hollywood still dares not speak of. But first, we need to understand the man behind the myth. Let's go back to where it all began. Burt Lancaster was born Burton Stephen Lancaster on November 2nd, 1913, in Manhattan, New York City. He was one of the most iconic and versatile actors of Hollywood's golden age. Raised in East Harlem by working-class parents, his father a postal worker and his mother a housewife, Lancaster grew up in a tough but close-knit Irish-American family. From an early age, he demonstrated a strong sense of independence, athleticism, and an innate charisma that would later serve him well on stage and screen. He attended DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx and went on to New York University on an athletic scholarship where he excelled at basketball and gymnastics. Before stepping into the spotlight as a Hollywood leading man, Lancaster first gained fame as a circus acrobat. He joined the K Brothers Circus in his early 20s and spent several years touring the country, performing as part of an acrobatic duo with his longtime friend Nick Cravat. This experience not only honed his physical prowess, allowing him to do his own stunts in many of his films, but also instilled in him a discipline and presence that carried over into his acting career. Lancaster's path to the silver screen came somewhat by chance. After serving in the U.S. Army during World War II in the Special Services Unit, where he entertained troops, he was encouraged to try acting. His breakthrough came in 1946 with the film The Killers, a noir classic in which he played the doomed Swede, a role that instantly established him as a compelling and intense new presence in Hollywood. With his athletic build, piercing blue eyes, and forceful screen presence, Lancaster quickly rose to fame as a leading man in the late 1940s and 1950s. Over the course of his career, Burt Lancaster proved to be far more than just a handsome action star. He was deeply committed to challenging himself as an artist, choosing roles that defied typecasting. He starred in a wide variety of genres, from film noir and swashbuckling adventures to socially conscious dramas and intimate character studies. Notable performances include his Academy Award-winning role as Elmer Gantry in the 1960 film of the same name, a passionate and fiery portrayal of a traveling evangelist. Other acclaimed films include From Here to Eternity, 1953, in which he delivered one of cinema's most memorable romantic scenes with Deborah Kerr, The Sweet Smell of Success, 1957, Birdman of Alcatraz, 1962, Judgment at Nuremberg, 1961, Atlantic City, 1980, and Local Hero, 1983. In addition to his acting, Lancaster was also a successful film producer. He co-founded Hessel Lancaster, one of the first independent production companies in Hollywood, through which he helped bring several groundbreaking films to the screen. This included Marty, 1955, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture and helped pave the way for more realistic, character-driven storytelling in American cinema. He used his influence to promote socially relevant themes and push against censorship and racial inequality. Off-screen, Lancaster was known for his fierce integrity and strong social conscience. He was a vocal supporter of civil rights, an early critic of the House Un-American Activities Committee, and an advocate for liberal political causes. He marched with Martin Luther King Jr., protested against the Vietnam War, and remained politically active throughout his life. Though known for being intensely private, he was deeply respected by his peers for his intelligence, professionalism, and unwavering commitment to both his craft and his principles. Even in his later years, Lancaster continued to act in films that challenged audiences and allowed him to display his mature, introspective side. His performance in Atlantic City earned him an Academy Award nomination at the age of 67, and his role in Field of Dreams, 1989, introduced him to a new generation as the kindly Moonlight Graham. He retired from acting after a stroke in 1990, left him partially paralyzed and unable to speak clearly, but his body of work remained a testament to his towering talent and enduring appeal. Burt Lancaster, the iconic American actor known for his commanding screen presence and athletic charisma, experienced a complex and eventful personal life marked by multiple marriages and several notable romantic entanglements. Over the course of his lifetime, Lancaster was married 3 times, each relationship contributing in its own way to the tapestry of his personal story. His first marriage was to June Ernst in 1935, during the early years of his professional life, when he was still establishing himself in the world of performance, initially as a circus acrobat and later as an emerging actor. June Ernst, a trapeze artist he met through his involvement in the circus, shared with Lancaster a love for physical performance and the spectacle of entertainment. However, as his career began to ascend in Hollywood in the 1940s, their paths began to diverge. The pressures of a burgeoning film career, frequent travel, and the increasing demands of stardom put strain on their relationship. Though the couple stayed together for over a decade, their marriage ultimately could not withstand the strain of these changes, and they separated in 1946. The union did not produce any children and eventually faded into a quiet parting as Lancaster's fame grew exponentially. Later that same year, in 1946, Lancaster married Norma Anderson, a relationship that would prove to be both his longest-lasting and most consequential in terms of family life. Norma played a stabilizing role in his life during the height of his Hollywood stardom. The couple had 5 children together: James, William, Susan, Joanna, and Sila, whom Lancaster deeply cared for, despite the often tumultuous nature of his personal schedule and the constant demands of his career. Their marriage spanned over 2 decades and accompanied the actor through some of the most defining moments of his professional life, including his Academy Award win for Elmer Gantry, 1960, and his involvement in socially conscious film. However, despite their long union, the relationship was not without its difficulties. Lancaster's extramarital affairs, long absences due to filming, and an increasing emotional distance ultimately led to their divorce in 1969. While the marriage ended in separation, Norma Anderson remained an important figure in his life, particularly as the mother of his children. Lancaster did not marry again until much later in life. In 1990, he wed Susan Martin, a much younger woman who provided him with companionship during the final years of his life. Their relationship, though relatively brief due to Lancaster's declining health, was by all accounts warm and nurturing. Susan was with him through his later battles with heart disease and the aftermath of a debilitating stroke he suffered in 1990, just months after their marriage. She remained his wife until his death in 1994, offering him care and emotional support during his final years. This late-life marriage gave Lancaster a measure of peace and domestic comfort after decades of complex relationships and personal upheavals. Beyond his official marriages, Lancaster's love life was marked by several high-profile romances that often attracted attention in Hollywood circles. One of the most talked about was his romantic involvement with British actress Deborah Kerr during the filming of the 1953 classic From Here to Eternity. Their on-screen chemistry was palpable and electrifying, culminating in the now legendary beach scene that became one of the most iconic romantic moments in cinema history. Off-screen, their relationship reportedly mirrored their passionate performances. Although both were married at the time and their affair was kept discreet, the affair with Kerr was said to be emotionally intense, leaving a lasting impression on both actors. In addition to his connection with Kerr, Lancaster was rumored to have had a romantic relationship with actress Joan Blondell, a popular screen star from the 1930s and 1940s, known for her wit and charm. Their time together was never publicly confirmed in detail, but their close companionship and frequent appearances together at Hollywood events fueled speculation of a more intimate bond. Another widely reported affair was with Shelley Winters, an outspoken and fiery actress known for her own string of Hollywood romances. Winters, who was never shy about discussing her past, hinted in her autobiography at a relationship with Lancaster, describing him as intense, passionate, and at times emotionally distant, qualities that seemed to characterize many of his personal relationships. As the golden light of classic Hollywood dimmed into the nostalgia of the 1970s, Burt Lancaster, one of its most commanding screen presences, sat down for a secret memoir, determined to set the record straight. In the eyes of the public, Lancaster was the strong-jawed hero, the romantic swashbuckler, and the principled rebel. But behind closed doors, he claimed to have seen a side of Hollywood few dared speak about. With pen in hand and bitterness in his heart, he began to write what would become one of the most shocking, unsanctioned exposés of the entertainment industry's biggest legends. He called it the most evil of them all, a survivor's list. Lucille Ball. Though beloved for her comedic brilliance, Lucille Ball was, according to Lancaster, a tyrant when the cameras stopped rolling. Lucy didn't just want to be funny, she wanted to own everything, he wrote. As the head of Desilu, she allegedly micromanaged staff, cut deals behind people's backs, and ran her empire like a battlefield. Her famous laugh, Lancaster claimed, could turn sharp as a whip when things didn't go her way. Jane Fonda. Burt Lancaster saw Jane Fonda not just as a firebrand of politics, but as a figure willing to sacrifice anything, relationships, reputations, even truths, for her cause. He viewed her as calculating, using activism as both shield and sword. She weaponized her beliefs to control the narrative and silence dissent, he wrote, describing her as someone who could be warm one moment and ice-cold the next. Mickey Rooney. To the public, Mickey Rooney was America's favorite boy next door, but to Lancaster, he was a firecracker with a short fuse and a darker side. He alleged that Rooney's charm was a front for cruelty, especially toward younger actors and women. He was a jester who enjoyed humiliation, Burt wrote, recounting stories of Rooney mocking extras, sabotaging scenes, and relishing the misery of rivals. Rooney's multiple marriages were, in Lancaster's view, not signs of romantic misfortune, but a pattern of control and abandonment. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor's name shimmered with elegance and scandal, but Lancaster saw behind the violet eyes. He described her as a storm wrapped in silk, capable of turning an entire set into a battleground. She didn't just steal scenes, she stole souls, he wrote. According to him, Taylor used her beauty and status to dominate co-stars, throw tantrums, and hold directors hostage to her whims. Her turbulent marriages were the stuff of legend, and Lancaster hinted that her emotional chaos often disrupted productions and relationships alike. Spencer Tracy. Widely revered as a brilliant, brooding performer, Spencer Tracy was, in Lancaster's telling, an unpredictable and often cruel force. He accused Tracy of alcoholism-fueled rages, physical intimidation of crew members, and even psychological abuse of co-stars. He could play saints on the screen, but he was a devil in the dressing room, Lancaster said. While many excused Tracy's behavior due to his talent and tortured soul, Lancaster saw only the damage left in his wake. James Stewart. Perhaps the most shocking inclusion on Lancaster's list was James Stewart. Known for his aw-shucks demeanor and beloved roles in It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Stewart was considered the embodiment of decency. But Lancaster claimed it was a carefully constructed mask. Jimmy Stewart smiled on camera, but he judged everyone off it, he wrote. Allegedly a cold and condescending man in private, Stewart's patriotism and moral uprightness were, in Lancaster's opinion, tools of manipulation and self-image. Marilyn Monroe. To the world, Marilyn Monroe was the tragic, beautiful icon of vulnerability. But to Lancaster, she was a destructive force. He described her as a black hole of need, whose addictions and insecurities drained everyone around her. He claimed Monroe used her status to delay productions, seduce power brokers, and manipulate sympathy. She made herself helpless so others would be forced to carry her, he wrote, noting how her behavior created chaos for directors, actors, and even entire studios. Errol Flynn. Lancaster didn't mince words when writing about Errol Flynn, who he claimed was a charming sociopath in pirate's clothing. He recounted wild parties, violent outbursts, and a trail of victims who were silenced by money and fear. While Flynn's exploits were often dismissed as rakish fun, Lancaster believed they masked genuine malevolence. Flynn lived as if nothing and no one else mattered, because to him, they didn't, he wrote. Bing Crosby. Though Bing Crosby's mellow voice serenaded millions, Lancaster described a chilling contradiction. That voice belonged to a man of ice, he said, referring to Bing's alleged coldness, especially toward his children. Lancaster cited rumors of Bing's iron-fisted parenting and aloofness on set. He could sing a lullaby to the world and then lash his sons behind closed doors, he wrote, hinting at the abuse later confirmed by Crosby's own children. Gary Crosby. Bing's son, Gary Crosby, was, according to Lancaster, the bitter product of his father's cruelty, and someone who became cruel himself. He didn't just carry the scars, he carried the rage, Lancaster claimed. As an adult, Gary allegedly lashed out at those around him, perpetuating cycles of addiction, resentment, and bitterness. Lancaster saw him not as a villain from birth, but as a tragic example of inherited trauma turned toxic. Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda was often seen as a man of quiet integrity, but Lancaster saw something else: emotional detachment bordering on cruelty. He treated life like a courtroom, sterile, judgmental, and cold, he wrote. Fonda's reserved nature was, in Lancaster's eyes, not introversion, but disdain. He passed judgment with a glance, and left others freezing in his shadow. Even his children, Lancaster suggested, suffered from his aloof parenting style, something Jane Fonda later confirmed. Natalie Wood. In Lancaster's controversial view, Natalie Wood was far from the vulnerable ingenue she portrayed on screen. He believed she was a master manipulator of public sympathy, with a knack for controlling powerful men. He claimed to have witnessed her engaging in emotional warfare, pitting directors and co-stars against each other to gain favor. She could cry on cue in the middle of a boardroom or a bedroom, he claimed, implying she weaponized her perceived fragility. While her tragic death remains a mystery, Lancaster hinted darkly at the chaos she left in her wake. Joan Crawford. No list of alleged Hollywood tyrants would be complete without Joan Crawford. Lancaster described her as a woman of iron ambition and steel nerves, someone who could command a set with her glare alone. He accused her of terrorizing younger actresses, abusing assistants, and manipulating public perception. She ruled with her eyebrows and her fists, he said, alluding to the same brutal parenting her daughter Christina later revealed. Kirk Douglas. Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas were frequent collaborators, from Gunfight at the OK Corral to 7 Days in May. But according to Lancaster's secret writings, the friendship masked a deep resentment. He described Douglas as a man carved from ambition and coated in ice. While the world saw Douglas as a heroic Spartacus, Lancaster allegedly saw a manipulative schemer who trampled colleagues to reach the top. He'd steal a role from his own son if it meant one more headline, Lancaster wrote. He accused Douglas of backroom betrayals, ruthless blacklisting, and using charm as a weapon to destroy his rivals. Whether these allegations were truth, exaggeration, or the product of a disillusioned actor's bitterness is unknown. Burt Lancaster never published this memoir in his lifetime. If it exists, it remains hidden in some dusty archive or private estate, its revelations waiting to rock the foundations of Hollywood legend. But one thing's certain, if even a fraction of Lancaster's claims were true, the golden age of Hollywood was built not just on dreams, but on secrets, sins, and the shadows of its stars. In the twilight years of Burt Lancaster's life, his once powerful physical presence and commanding screen persona were gradually overshadowed by a series of debilitating health problems. Known for his athletic build and energetic performances during the height of his film career, Lancaster had always maintained a physically demanding lifestyle, which made the decline in his health all the more poignant. However, as he aged, he began to suffer from a number of serious medical conditions that slowly eroded his strength and independence. One of the most significant health challenges Lancaster faced in his later years was atherosclerosis, a condition characterized by the hardening and narrowing of the arteries due to the buildup of plaque. This chronic illness can restrict blood flow and significantly increase the risk of heart attacks and strokes. For Lancaster, it became a dangerous and ultimately life-threatening condition. Over time, the disease led to 2 minor heart attacks, which served as grave warnings about the state of his cardiovascular health. Despite these alarming episodes, Lancaster continued to live his life with dignity and as much vitality as his declining condition would allow. In 1983, his health took a critical turn when he required an emergency quadruple coronary artery bypass surgery. This major procedure, which involves grafting arteries or veins to bypass blocked coronary arteries, was necessary to improve blood flow to his heart and to prevent a potentially fatal cardiac event. The operation was extensive and indicative of how severe his condition had become. Though he survived the surgery and initially seemed to recover well, the ordeal took a toll on his overall resilience. Despite overcoming this major surgery, Lancaster's health continued to deteriorate as the decade wore on. In 1990, he suffered a devastating stroke that had lasting and life-altering consequences. The stroke left him partially paralyzed, limiting his mobility and ending his ability to live independently. Perhaps even more tragically, for a man whose voice had captivated audiences in iconic films like From Here to Eternity and Elmer Gantry, the stroke also robbed him of his ability to speak. The loss of speech was a particularly cruel blow to a gifted actor who had relied not only on his physicality, but on his expressive vocal delivery to bring characters to life. Following the stroke, Lancaster withdrew almost entirely from the public eye, no longer able to engage in the kind of social or professional life he had once embraced so fully. He spent the remaining years of his life in relative seclusion under the care of loved ones and medical professionals. On October 20th, 1994, the final chapter of Burt Lancaster's extraordinary life came to a close. He passed away peacefully in his apartment in Century City, a neighborhood on the west side of Los Angeles, known for its proximity to the film industry he had helped shape for decades. The cause of death was his third and final heart attack, a culmination of the long battle he had waged against cardiovascular disease. He was 80 years old. News of his death was met with widespread mourning in Hollywood and among film enthusiasts around the world, as fans and colleagues alike remembered not only his vast contributions to cinema, but also the fierce vitality and intensity he brought to every performance. Though his final years were marked by silence, Burt Lancaster's legacy still echoes through time, not just in the roles he played, but in the truths he dared to carry. Behind the camera, he saw the power games, the cruelty, the masks, and in one final act of defiance, he wrote it all down. Not to destroy, but to be remembered, to remind us that even in the golden age, some legends were built on shadows. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more untold truths from the stars who lived them and the secrets they left behind.